Hi, welcome to this conversation series of conversations with me. Prune Harris and Sara Weyland is here today, and we want to explore together the role of the carer in looking after someone who is ill. How do you really deeply support someone who is going through an illness of any kind? Hi, Sara. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, Prune. I'm happy to be here, especially to talk about this particular subject. It's something that's really close to me as someone that's worked in various different healthcare capacities, working with clients and patients, and also having the privilege of supporting you most recently through your coronavirus experience. And so I'm really looking forward to really exploring some of these really rich themes around caring for people who are going through illness, whether they're a beloved or someone maybe that you're working with in a healing capacity.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think often we think about professionals being different from parents or spouses, children looking after parents. Really, how do we define the place of healing when you are caring for somebody in whatever capacity it is?
Yeah, great. Prune, one thing I thought maybe we could start with is talking about some themes around permission. So when we are aware that someone is working with illness in whatever capacity we're working with, whether as a healer or a beloved or a carer, maybe you can just talk a little bit about the importance of permission and why that might be important.
Yeah, absolutely. If we consider that illness is part of health, that illness isn't something that happens to us, but something that we actually engage in on a really subconscious and or conscious level. So when somebody is working with an illness, then supporting them involves their permission. And energetically, I want to talk about a bit when that happens. When somebody asks for help, when somebody asks for support, that is an amazing opening into the journey of wellness. Let's think of it as that way. When you're ill, you are on a journey towards wellness. And if you have asked for help, if you've asked for support, then in a way, everything about your system begins to align to what that other person can offer. I always think of this meeting place, especially in my practice and when I'm teaching students in that healing capacity. What I encourage you always to look for is the place where your system and the client system meet, because in that place is every part of potential for not just the client wellness, and this is where it's really beautiful, not just for the wellness of the individual that has experienced that transformation through illness, but for your own transformation, understanding, accessibility into deeper parts of your own system, how to bring that out into the world. So this meeting point becomes, for me, the very definition of potential within healing and within caring for somebody. Now, that meeting point is very different when you've had permission to work with someone, permission to care with someone. That alignment occurs, and what it can achieve is so much more, so much richer an experience for both of you going through that journey together.
Great. Prune, one thing that is has stuck in my mind for several years now that I learned from you is what the energy can look like as if you're taking on the role of a healer, or even if you're acting in a role of a caring position, maybe for a family member or a loved one or something like that. That in our big heart, big loving heart, wanting to really help someone get well or get better, what that can look like when your own energy kind of spills all over their energy.
Yeah.
And so I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about that and how we can meet that in a different way to be more sort of empowering to their experience, and then also not to be giving up so much of yourself.
Yeah, really beautiful, beautiful questions there, Sarah, because so often when we are caring for someone, when we are working in that healing capacity, and I actually want to define the word healer as well at the moment, because historically, there has been some judgment or criticism around people that take on the role healer as if they're the one doing something to the other person. And actually, so let's define that. For me, a healer is someone who is working within the healing field, working within that capacity of seeking balance. That's it. For me, that's what that purpose of healing is, to seek balance and support balance. So if I'm working to care for someone and I am working from fear, that may be fear that this person is ill, fear that this person is maybe working in this instance at the moment with something like coronavirus, which of course is, it's a very deep illness. So if I'm working from that capacity and I'm frightened, or if I'm exhausted, or if I'm really committed to the outcome, then what's going to happen is that my energy field will be spilling over with my needs, my fears, my projections, spilling over into that, let's use the word client, the person who is needing to move back towards wellness. So at that point, I'm no longer empowering the client system. I'm actually spilling all over it. And that means that their system, their energy has to absorb, integrate, digest all of this energy of mine. Now, that's not leading towards balance. What we need ideally, as someone who is caring for somebody else, working in that healing capacity, is the ability to keep our own energy field strong, grounded, radiant. What an amazing way to work with somebody else when actually we are in our vitality, we're holding that energy field of vitality, and we're inviting the individual's energy field to actually meet us in that place. What happens is energetically very, very different then, because it would look like, let's say I'm working or you're working with somebody, and we are holding that containment in my own energy field. Yeah, so I'm standing there. I've got energy coming in through my crown into the energetic core and out through my feet, energy coming in through the feet, through the core and out through the head. So I'm in that flow. What actually happens when we're in that place is that the other individual, whether they're sitting, standing or lying, begins to receive more energy into their feet and into their head. Not my energy, but my groundedness, my electromagnetic charge and flow through my system is calling more of that into being in theirs. That's amazing. That's moving towards balance. And it means I'm in my fullness, which then, as I work either through the day to care for a beloved that's ill, or in a professional capacity, I'm working through the day in sessions. As I'm working in that way, I'm continually resourcing myself. Well, if I'm spilling over into that client system, not only is it negative for them, but my goodness, by the end of the day, I'm either going to feel brilliant because actually I've cleared a lot of my own patterns by working with the clients, but now they're digesting it, or I'm going to feel really tired because I've given so much and yet I haven't been able to resource at the same time.
Yeah, thanks for that, Prune. For me, that was such an amazing understanding the first time I heard you describe it like that. And for those of us that really think about things very visually, for me, it was really helpful to know what it looks like when someone comes in with the best of intentions and wants so much to really help someone, whether it's a family member or a client, and what that looks like in terms of taking away that sort of empowerment of the person's system. It's really a completely different way of thinking about that. One thing I
And
did
I'm really glad, Sarah,
sorry.
that you mentioned there that it's with the best of intentions, because it always is. It's that real, and I notice it in my own system, of course, when I'm working with clients. If I'm beginning to get tired, then my system is going to have a far greater capacity to get invested in the outcomes, to actually sort of connect with that person through the heart field, but in a floppy way. If you can kind of think of the heart field as something, it's an amazing electromagnetic energy field. For all of us, it's anywhere between 2 foot off the body and 10 foot off the body. So if you're working with another person, whether that's bringing them a cup of tea because they're in bed, or whether it's being in a clinical setting, if you're working with them, you are in each other's heart fields at all times. So then, if my beautiful big heart is reaching for the other person, then there's an element of, it's almost like longing. And longing is close to desperation. They're different energies, but they can fall into each other, and both of you can become quite ungrounded. Well, if I'm standing in my strength, if my heart field is pulsing a rhythm of health, of vitality, it really can spark the template of health in the other individual, so that there's a remembering in their system. And it's not that that system is going to mimic mine, but it's that pulse of life is going to start pulsing in their system. Really beautiful, a real sense of empowerment on all levels.
Yeah, I just really love this whole topic, and it should give all of us really great incentive to really work on our grounding and to really become very expert at knowing what really helps each one of us individually to be able to hold our grounding. So for me, that was a real leap forward in understanding that, that makes things really easy. What I need to do is focus on grounding and what works for my system. And it really was a game changer. So thank you so much.
No, I'm really delighted to hear that, Sarah. It was a game changer for me as well. My system is very empathic. It's always reading, interpreting, checking things out. Everybody has a chakra that is a little more exploratory than the rest of the chakras. And it's almost like beautiful tendrils come out from that chakra to receive information from the world. And my system, like many people's systems, has that real ability to connect. But when I realized that reaching, let's think of it like that reaching towards the other person was often a reaching into their space, then could really understand that was not aiding their balance. There is a way that we support people through a compassion, through a love, through a caring. So I'm not saying be distant or aloof in any way. It's almost the more your system is contained in its strength, then the more ability you have to access that beautiful compassion, which is such a key part of healing. The more ability you have to access the wisdom of your system, to even understand how to help that other person, what they really need at that point, how to listen to what they're saying, how to understand what they're bringing forward. So that containment can become your greatest gift of medicine towards another person.
Yeah, that's really rich, Prune. One thing that I was wondering about with your recent experience with coronavirus and having it first come through your daughter, Ella. So in this case, you're an amazing healer and you have amazing skills in that way, but you're also a mother. You're watching your daughter go through something that's really intense. So I'm wondering if you can just say a few things around that about how do you approach it any differently when it's like, someone in your inner circle, your family, something in that kind of situation? I wonder if you have any insights around that.
Yes, I think that one of the insights I've learned is to assume nothing. And of course, that's true in clinical practice as well. But definitely my way of perceiving energy is that the closer I am, so if there are strong familial bonds with people, then my perception can become very skewed because I'm seeing it through my own lenses. And that's true for everything and in every situation. But when it's family members, then I have a lot less clear vision, a lot less clear understanding. So I come back and I really settle into that place of what can I do to empower that person towards health? And in the case of my children, actually they're different. In the case of my daughter, it's much more about being a companion to her rather than offering any energy exercises or meridian work or aura work or chakra work. She wants someone to listen to her, to actually show compassion and sympathy. And she wants to be supported in that place of love. With my son, anytime he's ill, he loves having the energy work done to him. Anything that helps him connect things together, me working on his energy system, he totally loves that. So I think it's about really asking what that person needs to be most supported in their journey.
Yeah, no, I really like that. Interesting too that you would assume when it's a family member that the tendency might be to just jump in and do all the things that you all the tricks and tools that you might have.
Yeah.
So I really like that sort of consideration for what's going to help empower their systems the most. That's a really great sort of guiding light through that process.
Yeah, I think one of the really, really key things for all of my relationships is the understanding of how can I support you to be your fullest self? What do you need from me to be you? And so if we kind of bring that into that role of caring for someone or healing with someone, it's what do they need to reclaim their energy, to reclaim their power? And for me, that's a really key guiding light in how I interact with anyone in that caring or healing capacity, because it's so different, isn't it? And sometimes we can care so much for someone and we can work so hard to help them that actually things like personal exhaustion can creep in, resentment can creep in. We become really unbalanced. And at that point, on a clinical level here, I had in our family, my brother-in-law had an accident and became paralyzed. He couldn't move from the waist down. And I saw my sister work with him day after day, year after year, really caring from that place of great love. And of course, so many people are working 24/7 to actually care for a beloved. It's one of the least recognized and valued roles that we house in society. And yet it's one of the most precious, that someone is sacrificing. And the word sacrifice means to make sacred. Someone is sacrificing so much of their life in order to support another beloved. Wow, I mean, what an amazing, amazing life path together that is. And so I don't in any way want to imply in this that we need to withdraw, or I know in certain times people just don't have the choice to be supported as the carer. But when we're looking in a clinical capacity, then actually being able to work from that place of individual empowerment means that the journey towards wellness, that journey of transformation or even initiation that people can go through, is empowered. And that's that place of success for me when it comes to actually working to help another person reclaim their fullness.
I really like that you brought forward that word of success. So I think maybe we can explore that a little more, where you had talked about when you feel committed to the outcome. So whether you're working in a capacity of a healer, or even if we're talking about working with friends and family and things like that, maybe talk a little bit around that sort of feeling when you're in that role of like how we define what success looks like when we're working with another person. And does that mean necessarily that they have a return to full health?
Yeah, it's a great question, isn't it? For me, it's about them moving into their place of wellness, their place of balance, that place of our role of empowering them upon their life path. So it's not about helping that sore knee get better necessarily. It's about helping them step forward on their life. And that place of all the time looking at the different levels of not being well, the different levels of illness or disease, the places where actually there's the physical body, the emotional, cognitional body, and then there's the sacred aspect. So sometimes we refer to that as the light body. So actually we've got these different aspects within ourselves, and maybe the physical body needs to really sink deep in order for that big soul understanding to affect the spiritual aspect of that individual, for them to connect into their soul on that sacred level. So maybe somebody comes into my clinic with a bad knee, for example. That's great. That's a wonderful starting point. But actually, why is the knee injured? Why is the knee injured? Why is that imbalance there? What's coming into the body system that's actually looking for balance in a different way? And yes, of course, we're going to work with things like meridians or the energy around the knee itself. But so often, actually, in my practice, I never did. I worked with the levels within the body system that were calling into wellness. Because quite quickly, if you can empower those systems within the whole body, the whole energy, if you can empower what is already in perfection, then actually that radiance magnifies and heals the body on an amazingly quick level. I tend I like being efficient in lots of things that I do. Fail terribly sometimes, I'm very good in other times. And one of the ways when we work with the physical matter of the body, when we work to really sort of change the physicality back towards health, it's a slow process because physicality is dense, isn't it? It's physicality is energy, but it's dense energy. When we can work on those energetic core levels, when we can work on the subtle energy systems, then actually it's going to often be a much faster way into balancing the physical. So I think when we think about success might mean death. And I've worked with many people who we understood very early on that it was about supporting them as they moved towards that great transition of death. It wasn't about trying to support the physical body back towards health. Their health was moving in their most empowered way towards death. And I, as a healer, as a practitioner in that respect, have to really understand that it's about empowerment of the whole, empowerment of that person in all of their aspects, the sacred, the emotional, cognitional, and the physical. And that actually they have the wisdom and the power to move forward in the right way for them. I think the place where success can be really tricky is when there's a lot of stagnation, a lot of confusion in that person as to what actually, into the direction they're moving. So often as a practitioner, that's a place to really work well. And of course, when you're caring with someone, for someone at home, then that's another really tricky place because, let me think of children here for a minute. When children are saying, I don't want to go to school, I feel so tired today, I've got a cold, and maybe there's no external symptom of a cold. For me, what I hear that is that their soul is in a place of lethargy with the school, or with the routine, whatever it is for that child. So being able to hear what's behind or within the physical symptoms, that's a huge level of success, because from that place, you can support that child into actually feeling nourished again. If their system feels nourished, then again, you're working with the places in them that are already in their fullness, and that will move the entire system towards balance. Remembering at all times that your body system is looking towards balance. Everything about your energy is seeking connection, cohesion, health, vitality. Everything about your system is looking to do that. And if you're not there, it's because of these places of imbalance or congestion. But your energy system is doing the most amazing dance around those places of blockages to actually seek balance. So often, by bringing that empowerment, that nourishment, that love, compassion, humor, whatever it is, into the home situation or the clinical situation, wow, you can really achieve that wellness of the client.
Yeah, thanks for that, Prune. I'm wondering when we think about chronic illness or themes around chronic illness, do you have an understanding that that chronic illness, or if someone's going through a process where they've been dealing with something for years and years and years, maybe even decades, is it your understanding that that might be the soul path that that person's on, and that's perfect just as it is? Or is that like a call or a message that there's something out of balance that really needs some attention? I'm just wondering how you view that.
Yeah. I've worked with a lot of people who've been in exactly that situation, years, decades of illness. And does it mean that they get real deep wisdom from being in that place of surrender, of limitation? There's a lot of, I've had chronic illnesses at times in my life, and my goodness, there is so much to have to repattern within our cultural norm as far as what we do. We have to ask for help. We have to recognize that we can't do things that we want to do. We have to somehow keep that bravery and that hope alive, that we will be able to expand. And of course, for some people that's possible at times, and for other people it's not possible. And that's a continual dance and journey with it. I think it would be really great, Sarah, for us to explore the concept of chronic ill health a different time, because in a way it's such a big and rich topic itself. But what I would say briefly is that anytime anybody moves into that sort of depth of prolonged illness, then there's always an initiation point within the energy system. There's a point at which the unraveling began. And to directly answer your question, is that part of their soul path? Like, ooh, that's a biggie, isn't it? I fully believe that we have choice of how we experience our soul needs at any time. So when we've kind of been pushed into that place of initiation or transformation for an illness, then yes, it's part of our soul needs, but it's not necessarily part of our soul needs to get stuck there. That's then much more about old patterns playing out. And the inability of the energy system, and therefore the physicality, to begin to weave itself back together towards health. So no, I don't believe that long-term illnesses are something to be accepted. I think there's something to be worked with in the most expansive way. But let's have a deeper conversation on that another time, because I think I would love to talk more about that and give some insights into how people who are currently working with those long-term health issues can begin to bring that expansion back.
Yeah, I really look forward to that and welcome that very much, because I think that will be certainly meaningful to me, but I'm sure to a lot of other people too. So maybe in sort of a closing note, one thing I think is related to this role of the carer. And when we learn of someone in our inner circle, a beloved, a friend, something like that, when we learn that someone has become ill in some way, I wondered if you can comment on or discuss ways that we can meet that kind of information. So what I'm thinking of is many of us have the thought or the feeling that we want to send some healing light or love to that person. Instantly when you first hear, oh no, this person, like when we first heard that you were ill and even in the hospital, I'm sure other people maybe felt that sort of pull to send some light and love and healing energy, things like that. So I'm just wondering if you can say a little bit around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of comes back to that question you asked about permission, isn't it? It's that place of energies meeting, the energy of the person who's feeling that desire to help and the energy of the person who is in their journey of being ill or being compromised in some way. So there's a wonderful phrase. I know that one of my teachers, David Feinstein, uses a lot. The helping hand strikes again. And it's a really powerful phrase, really powerful. Because for so many of us, we work from that place of wanting to help, wanting to offer whatever we feel is needed. But we have to be aware that what we feel is needed might not be what is actually needed. So if that friend has said, I really want all of the love and the healing energy, please pour it into my system, then wonderful. But what if they haven't? I'm reminded of actually the first time I really understood this clearly. A friend had a nephew who'd been in a bike accident, motorbike accident, and she asked me if I would do some healing work with him. So in that situation, he was in a coma. I was unable to ask him myself, is it appropriate that we do some work together and would you like it? Which would be my usual way if somebody approached me for some kind of help in that way. So I couldn't ask him directly, but that doesn't matter when we work energetically, because I was able to think of him, to actually find his energy in this amazing cosmic web that we're all part of. So we're all connected at all times. So I was able to find his energy and find the place where my system and my consciousness, let's use those words, my consciousness and his consciousness could meet, and ask, is it appropriate for me to actually help sending some vibrations of healing into your system? And it was a really clear answer, and the answer was no. At that point, I was still thinking in terms of helping him heal his body. And he was moving towards death. He died within a few hours of this meeting of consciousness. And the answer was very clear. It was a no. It wasn't about healing the body at that point. It was about him preparing his journey into death. And it really, I think it was the first time I'd ever had a sort of, let's say, a block on that willingness to receive energy. And it was such a powerful learning for me, because I really recognized it would have been inappropriate for me to have desired or held or sent energy for his physical healing, because that's not where his entire system would have been able to align to. And it might even have put a concentration on the physical that stopped his soul path, that stopped his progression into death. So we have to be really mindful that when we send energy, we are manipulating the other individual's energy system. And that's when we use words like that, when we say things like manipulating other people's energy, then we maybe have a different relationship with doing so. One way that can be really beautiful is that if you're someone who wants to send a prayer or love or healing to someone else, that you sort of put a proviso on it. Often at times, every morning I light a candle, and I light a candle for balance in all parts of the cosmos. healing for all parts of the cosmos. Or maybe I know someone is ill with coronavirus, but I don't have direct permission to work with that person. So I'll say, for everybody right now who's being affected by coronavirus, may this prayer help them in whatever way is right for them. So you see what I've done? I can still work with that love, work with that healing energy, but I haven't. Sometimes when we work with sending energy, think of it like an arrow. I haven't fired an arrow towards a specific person. And maybe that arrow is absolutely filled with love, but it still penetrates into their system. I remember when I was being taught Reiki, and there was the real understanding. My teacher used a beautiful example of what if someone was driving a car and was feeling a bit sleepy, and I'm sending them Reiki at that time without their permission. Well, maybe that beautiful big healing energy of Reiki would make them so tired that they fell asleep and crashed their car. There's nothing healing about that, eh? That's that healing hand striking again. Or maybe someone's climbing up a ladder, they're in a little bit of a vulnerable place, and suddenly they receive that healing energy that just knocks their concentration off a little bit. I think one of the things is that we don't understand just how powerful our thoughts and our intentions are. So when we don't have that understanding, we don't understand that it has that really direct and potentially penetrative way of working. On one level, we do understand, and that's what we want. We want to send that healing. We want to send that prayer, but the receiving of it may be very deep. So therefore, having permission, having a time. Yeah, if you're going to be actually working with someone, then it might be right. What time? You're going to lie down. You're going to receive this energy. You know they're safe. You know that they have given you permission. And then you work with that prayer or that singing, chanting, however it is that you can both move into that place of harmony and balance.
Oh, thank you so much, Prune. Those examples, to me anyway, are really memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is challenging because we tend to, all of us who work in the healing, caring capacity, we all have big hearts and we want to do the very, very best we can. And it's just some of these kind of understandings around energy have been lost over time. And so we don't realize that's almost, there's an ethical part to working with healing and prayer and sending energy as well. So yeah, really great to have this conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's very needed, and it's something that I've really learned a lot and evolved the way that I understand this whole idea around sending love and energy to other people. I really love the option that we all have to just put it on a higher level and send it to everyone.
Yeah.
The whole cosmos. That feels really nourishing and safe, and it gives a place for that sort, all those feelings of love and that wanting to help and wanting to help bring balance. It gives a place for that to go in a safe way.
Absolutely. And one of the other things it does is it includes ourselves. And there's a very big shadow within the healing world, and that's that we put others first. Yeah, we're taught very, very early in our modern cultures that we always put other people first, and that in many ways we move into the healing capacity in service to other people. And that's beautiful, really, really beautiful. But in service doesn't mean in servitude. So if I'm working to help someone else bring balance into their life, healing in this situation, and I am unbalanced, if helping them exhausts me, then actually, if we think about this amazing cosmic web of connection, and we think about the ill person as a thread or a light within that beautiful web of life, and I am as well. So now I'm a thread in the web of life, and they're a thread in the web of life. And through my actions, I've helped them gain more balance, and I've unbalanced myself in the process. Then I have done no healing work at all. Because if we are working to really bring healing to the whole, which I hope we are, I think we all are, then if we're working on that super conscious level, then all I've put into the web of life is the same. I've worked hard, but for no outcome. So actually, when we work with prayers, blessings, sending energy into that, you use the word, that higher level, yeah, into that super consciousness, trusting it will go where it needs to go, then actually, if I need some balancing, some loving, some health, some healing, then of course it comes into me as well. So we get this real understanding that we're working at multiple levels at the same time, and that we are an essential part of that web of life, that we are a really important part of it, just as every other living being is. So wow, that's a beautiful, beautiful energy to be working within, and consciousness to be working within.
Yeah, Prune, what a great idea to end on. That's a really beautiful thing. And for me, we started talking about, the role of the healer and the carer and supporting someone that's experiencing illness. And I love that where we've come to at the end is a way that we can help to support everyone, including ourselves, in a very real way.
Absolutely. I think it's that concept of the healer's portion, yeah, the carer's portion. It's essential. It's absolutely essential.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Prune.
Well, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for guiding this beautiful conversation, and I look forward to another one.
Me too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.